If you're an adult learner, what is kind of a realistic goal for your first year of learning the violin? And what is the breakdown of the steps that you need to take to really learn the violin and to learn it very well? That's what this video is all about. All of these things that I'm going to share with you, many of these topics I've already made videos on them, so I'll be linking them throughout as I talk about them, and I'm also going to be continuing to make more videos in the future. So definitely subscribe to my channel so that you can be following for all of the great violin content that's coming soon. So the first tip that I have really as we get started is, if you are able to, it really is most helpful if you can find a teacher to help guide you through the basics of learning the violin. Violin can be a complicated instrument because you have this whole, holding the violin with your left hand, holding the bow with your right hand. You have technique that goes along with holding the violin. You have technique that goes along with holding the bow. They're very separate from each other, while at the same time, they also have to be, of course, working together. And so for beginner violinists, it can be really, really helpful to have a teacher who actually can coach you through your specific needs as a beginner violin student. When you're first learning the violin, the basics are extremely, extremely important, because if you learn how to hold your violin in the proper way and your bow in the proper way and then play in the proper way, that's going to set you up for success in the long run. Now, you are able to learn violin all on your own. Look at a lot of pictures, watch a lot of videos to make sure that you really are holding your violin in the right way and holding your bow in the right way and playing in the right way. That's just going to come over time. And so you can kind of cut down on some of that time if you do have a teacher to work with you. If not, you want to be watching really carefully to make sure that you're learning all those things in the correct way. And of course, if you're choosing to learn the violin as an adult, it's because you really want to learn it. And so you already have the intrinsic motivation that you need to really practice and to get yourself going and motivated as you move forward. So each of these stages of learning the violin, I've broken up into 6 weeks each. And of course, for each person that may be different, depending on how much time you actually have to practice. It could be longer than that. It could be shorter than that. So don't feel any particular pressure by these time ranges that I'm giving, but this is what you can expect if you really are putting in fairly consistent practice. So stage number 1, which is about week 1 to 6, is the introduction to the violin. So number 1, you want to learn what are the parts of the violin, what are the parts of the bow. Number 2, you want to learn the proper posture for holding your violin and for holding your bow. Number 3, you want to learn what is the sweet spot of playing on the violin. And I have videos on finding that as well. I like to call that the bow highway. So it's kind of the happy spot where your bow is able to play and make a very beautiful sound on the violin. Number 4, you're going to want to learn how to tune your violin. So you'll want to learn what are the 4 strings on the violin, E, A, D, G, and then how to tune to each of those. It's helpful to have a tuner on hand so that you can tune properly. And also, if you have a piano, that's another way that you can verify that you're tuning to the correct notes as well. Number 5, you want to work on producing a beautiful sound. And you're going to do this by playing simply on the open strings. So on the E string, the A string, the D string, the G string. Your goal will be to learn how to make a really beautiful sound, a really clean sound, a really full sound on your violin, using your bow in the proper way and holding your violin in the proper way. And number 6, you want to be not only learning how to play with a beautiful sound, but also how to be listening, training your ear to listen and to hear what is going right and maybe what's going wrong so that you can make adjustments. So now we'll move on to stage number 2 of learning the violin. And this is from about week 7 to week 12 of learning the violin. You're going to focus on basic rhythm and bowing technique. You want to get really comfortable now with your bow hold and how to do different directions of bowings. And so you'll be learning how to do down bow where you're pulling this way, and then up bow going this way with your bow. Both of those things are things you'll be learning during this time. And as you do that, you're going to want to focus on having a straight bow that's parallel to the bridge and having a very clean sound without a bunch of crunches or squeaks or hitting other strings. Third thing, you want to learn about notes and rhythm. Now, if you have a background in music, you may already know all of the note values like quarter notes, half notes, whole notes, eighth notes, all of that. If you don't, though, this is the time to start really working on that. The best way, in my opinion, to do that is to either buy sets of flashcards where you can practice clapping out the rhythms, or you can just make your own rhythm combinations and clap them out and count them. And so clapping and counting rhythms can be an extremely simple and yet very effective way to learn. Now, during this time, you'll also want to focus on using your bow in different areas and controlling it and keeping it in the right positioning when you're in different parts of the bow doing different things. Now, at this point, you can still be playing on just the open strings, but now you'll be incorporating different rhythms. For example, with my students, we often do an exercise where they learn different rhythms. One of them is called pepperoni pizza. And then they practice that rhythm in different areas of their bow. And the goal of it is that they are trying to do that rhythm in different parts of the bow, middle, frog, tip, maintaining control of their bow. You can do all kinds of rhythm. The goal is just to practice on the open strings, get comfortable with playing on each of the open strings and in the different parts of your bow. Now, during this time also, as you're focusing on your bow, you'll also want to keep an eye on having a very relaxed arm and very fluid movements. So as your bow is coming down, you want to think about your wrist, your arm, your hand. Everything is connected, and you want to, from your shoulder all the way down to your fingers, you want there to be a very relaxed positioning and fluid movements where it can freely move while at the same time maintaining a straight bow that stays parallel to the bridge. Now, moving on to stage 3 of learning the violin, from about weeks 13 to 18 of learning the violin. This is where you'll focus on your left hand fundamentals. So your left hand is the one that holds the violin and places the fingers on the fingerboard. So that is what you'll be focusing on during this time. At this point, it may be helpful for you to put down stickers on your fingerboard. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4 stickers for your 4 fingers to help them learn your first positioning on the violin. Some people don't put down stickers and they just learn by listening with their ear. Whether you use stickers or not, you do want to make sure that you're really listening and hearing the sound of each of the notes as they go down and making sure that you adjust based on what you hear. And this is going to train your ear to eventually be able to take off the stickers. So the whole goal, of course, ultimately is not to have the stickers on your fingerboard. You don't want them to become a crutch. You really just want this to be a tool to help you along the way as you're learning. So you'll want to learn that left hand finger placement. And at this point, you'll be learning how to put down usually your first finger. And so there's a lot of books that have simple songs that use just the open strings and then the first finger going down on the E string, the A string, the D string, the G string. So this is a good way to practice that. So usually you'll learn how to put the first finger down and then the second, then the third, and usually the fourth finger, you'll learn how to place that last. Now, during this time, as you're learning how to put your hand for the first time, this is also the time where usually you're going to start learning either simple finger patterns or scales. I do recommend is doing first finger patterns where you learn how to do open 1, 2, 3, 4 and in different arrangements of whole steps and half steps. This is one of the simplest ways to start getting comfortable with using all 4 fingers on each string and using them in different arrangements. And then the next thing you can do is doing a scale. One of the easiest scales to learn first thing is either the D major scale or the A major scale. Also during this time is when you'll be able to start learning some songs because now you're putting your fingers down on the fingerboard. One of my favorite books to get started with is called The Blue Book of Violin, and it's by Bonnie Green. Now it is written for young children in mind, but I actually think it's a very helpful book for a complete beginner, even as an adult. So they have a lot of simple tunes, many songs and folk tunes, some that are extremely familiar, some that are not so much. And so it's a nice combination of different tunes. It starts out with everything being notated in just the letter names. So it would say G, G, A, and so on. And then midway through the book, it transitions to note names on a treble clef. So it gives you a little time to learn about the treble clef and learn all the notes on it before you just jump right into it. So if you're a total complete beginner, that is a really great book to get started with. Another nice book for beginner violinists is The Essential Elements for String Players. You can get the beginner level for that one, and that's a very good book. Also, Suzuki Book 1, which is probably one of the most famous beginner violin books. That one is actually not my personal favorite in terms of being self-taught, but it does have some good songs. Suzuki books tend to be a little easier if you do have an in-person teacher teaching you, but there also are a lot of tutorials on YouTube that you can find to learn the Suzuki songs, and so that can be an option as well. So those 3 books I would recommend to get you started with beginner tunes on the violin. So at this point, you'll have learned the basics of the violin, the basics of the bow, how to hold the bow and use the bow, how to hold the violin and put your fingers down on the fingerboard. And at this point, you're ready to start working on more of your musicality and how things are sounding and different styles of playing. So moving on to stage 4 of learning the violin, this will be from about week 19 to 24 of learning the violin. Here you'll be focusing on musicianship and expression. One of the ways that you can bring more expression to your music is through dynamics. Dynamics have to do with the louds and the softs in music. And so here is where you'll want to learn about the different dynamic markings like forte, piano, fortissimo, pianissimo, all those fun Italian words. You'll want to learn the symbols and what they mean and how to start playing them on your violin. That's always a very fun time because it really makes your music start to come alive and just gives it so much more beauty and expression. Related to dynamics has to do with how you're using your bow. So the speed that you're playing your bow with, where exactly you're playing on the violin with your bow. Because if you move a little closer to the bridge, your dynamics will change. If you move a little away from the bridge, your dynamics will change. If you start playing faster with your bow, that's going to create different dynamics or different effects. And if you play more slowly, that's going to create different effects as well. And so this is the time where you'll want to start learning about different types of bowings. For example, legato or staccato or martele or colle. All of these different terms have to do with how you're using your bow, and it's going to bring more musical expression to your playing. This is also known as articulation, and articulation in music has to do with the way that you play something. The articulation could be maybe bouncy, or it could be smooth, or it could be accented and loud. Most of those things have to do with how you're playing with your bow. And so this is the time to start learning about all of that. If you did buy one of those books, the Blue Book for Violin, Suzuki Book 1, or Essential Elements for Strings, all of those books are great ones to just continue working through song by song. Your skills will build on top of each other as you progress through the books. Now in stage 5 of learning the violin, about week 25 to 30, you'll focus more on learning scales and etudes to really get stronger, be more accurate on the violin. And a lot of this is going to come through practicing different scales or different etudes, which are just short songs that focus on specific techniques. At this point, 3 easy scales are really good to learn. It's the D major scale, the G major scale, and the A major scale. Secondly, you want to have some etudes that are helping you learn specific techniques on the violin. There are 2 books that are widely used by classical violinists. One is called Wolfart, Opus 48, and the other is Schradiak, Book 1. Those 2 books can actually be paired together to learn a bunch of different techniques and bowings, and they can be very, very helpful. During this time, you'll continue really working on your bow control. Really, bow control is something that you're always going to be working on as a violinist and growing in, and you always want to be thinking about what are ways that you can make your bow transitions more smooth? What are ways that you can make the sound even more cleanly or more full? And as well, during this time, practicing a lot of different types of rhythms on your violin can be helpful. Now, you can actually use your scales to practice rhythms. So just as an example, if I were going to be practicing my pepperoni pizza rhythm, I could practice it while playing a D major scale, for example. And so again, the pepperoni pizza rhythm is like this. Now I can do it with the whole D scale. I'll do a 1 octave here to demonstrate. And then you can do it all the way back down. And that way you're combining practicing your D major scale as well as a specific rhythm and a specific type of bowing all at the same time. In stage 6 of learning the violin, this is from about week 31 to 36. This is where you'll focus on how to play with other people, whether that be another violinist or a piano accompanist. And then finally, if you're preparing for a performance, that's really the final stage. And this is something that you can work on towards the end of the year as you're preparing for a recital or performance. Now, at this point, you probably have 2 or 3 songs that you're working on. You have some technique from maybe the Wolfart or Schradiak book that you're working on. You're practicing different types of bowings. You're practicing dynamics and musical expression. All of these things are starting to be combined And at this point, you might be getting to a point in your songs that you're working on that they're getting fairly solid and you're feeling more confident with them. This is where it is very fun to find somebody else to play with. So you can either find maybe another violin player that you can play a duet with, or you can find a piano player to accompany you. 3 books that I recommended, the Blue Book for Violin, Essential Elements for Strings, and Suzuki books, all have a piano accompaniment part that goes with it. And so you already have a part that somebody can play along. Or if you don't have somebody that you know to play with, there also, of course, are YouTube videos or backing tracks where you can just find it online and you can play it. And as that plays, you can play along with it. And that can create a very fulfilling experience because you're coming to the end of learning that song and it's fun to hear it all together. During this time as well, it can be helpful to find recordings of people who are professionals playing the song that you're working on. This can be helpful because, of course, if it's a video, you can watch and see what they're doing, how they're doing it. You can see how they're able to create specific types of bowings or sounds. It can be helpful to listen and hear and then be able to imitate that. Now, moving into this final phase of your first year of learning the violin is to prepare for a performance. This could be something as simple as performing for a loved one, like your spouse or your children or a friend, or it could be an actual recital where you and others come together and do a performance for people. This could look however you want it to look, but it can be a really nice way to share the music that you've been working on with other people. And it also kind of gives another extra push to really hone in on certain skills and to get extremely solid on specific pieces of music. So first of all, of course, you want to know exactly which pieces you'll be performing out of the ones you've learned so far. And once you know that, those are the ones that you'll really focus your attention on. At this point, you want to continue coordinating with an accompanist if you're playing with a pianist. You can practice performance skills specifically, like how to walk out on a stage, how to carry yourself, how to handle anxiety or stage fright, how to present yourself to the audience, how to take a bow, how to hold your violin for a performance. All of those things may seem very simple, but it's helpful to actually walk through every single detail that has to do with a performance so that when you get there, you don't feel nervous or anxious about it. Then you want to continue the work that you've already been doing on really honing in on the dynamics and the musical expression. A great way to practice can be to record yourself playing and then listen back to it and compare it to another recording that you really like. When you compare and you actually listen back to a recording of yourself, a lot of times it's more obvious what you need to work on than when you're playing it. Because when you're playing and you're performing, you're so focused on all of the things that it's sometimes hard to actually hear everything that's going on. At this point, another great way to practice is to do a pretend performance or like a mock performance before the actual event. You could get a small group of people together, like a couple friends, a few family members, have them sit and enjoy your beautiful music, and then you run through all of the details of your performance. And if you're able to play in the exact same setting that you're going to have the recital or the performance, even better. So those are the stages that I'd recommend for your first year of learning the violin, and some of the big overview topics of what to focus in on, what to learn, and what you can expect as a first year beginner violinist.